There are so many steps in the animation process, it's almost overwhelming, but somehow this team pulls it off. I've been able to see so many talented artists bring Young Justice Outsiders to life here at Warner Brothers Animation. Each of them not only brings their unique skills to their art, but also unite cohesively to create an episode.
Wow! Is wow the right word?
Step by step, the animation department collaborates to bring the story to life, and it all starts with the characters. I want to know from start to having this project realized, how does that work?
For any given episode, there is an assembly line quality to it. We hand those scripts over to the directors and to Phil Barassa and his amazing design staff.
I can bring the whole team along.
Wondrous! Will Wolf join us too?
Characters that you're bringing in, what is the design process? How do you make it match with the show's aesthetic?
I've been working on the DC library for so long, and Young Justice has a specific design language. So it's about looking at the traditions of the way the characters have been depicted in the comic and seeing what elements are iconic that we need to emphasize and how we bend it to fit in seamlessly with the world that we've established.
We'll find a way to make it work.
Who is your favorite character in this season?
Of the characters we're introducing, Forager's a lot of fun.
Oh.
He's just kind of cute. He's adorable. I didn't set out to make him cute, but he kind of just went that way. He turned into this really lovable sort of, I want a plushie, I want to squeeze him.
This is Forager.
We have an incredibly talented staff of artists and an incredibly dedicated production staff.
I am here with the character designers on Young Justice Outsiders. Do you guys have anything that you just loved working on in this show?
Forager is one of my favorite characters.
Nice.
His design already is very different from the main crew. Kind of everybody else is human.
Forager is a real alien.
Rion is the alien to Forager.
But then based on how he acts and just all those kind of situations that he gets put in, he really does blend within the group because he's basically just a teenager too.
Forager rolls with Forager's hive.
When you go into the design, how does that process usually work?
We basically have X amount of body styles that we'll use as a springboard. Then from there, we'll design variations in character features and body types and then place costumes on top of that.
From the first 2 seasons and the 3rd season, it's pretty evident that there's been a progression in style, a little bit of a different aesthetic. We aged everybody up, we did costume tweaks, and I think the fans are really gonna dig a lot of what they're gonna see.
At Bowhunter Security, we're always on point.
All of this material is then given to our storyboard crew. We have a sit down with everybody. We go over the script page by page. We'll have a lot of the preliminary designs for everybody to see.
How do you guys take something that is just writing on a page and make it into action?
Everybody has their own little process. I try to break it down into visual beats. All the while you're sort of massaging, where are they in the room? How can I have this visually make sense so that the audience isn't like, wait, where's that character? Then basically we combine all those things together and take a first pass at making written words into visual cinematic images that is turned into an animatic. An animatic is when we take our rough drawings and we turn them into a video.
No! How about a solution that doesn't dump the merchandise into the ocean?
We get it as close to animation as possible so we can evaluate.
Everything just plays like a little mini movie so that we can really see how the story is working. There's a lot of discussion, not just about the story, but the technical side of actually making this thing.
If you've got a battle on top of the roof of the truck, you've got to be very careful that the battle isn't too wide-ranging because the roof of the truck is only so wide. So we've got to be careful that the board artists are drawing it in such a way that it feels confined, and that's one of the threats to Dick and Will is that you fall off that truck, you're falling to your death.
So as the storyboards are finishing up, we're now looking at the storyboards and looking at all of the designs that we've created and making sure that it's all working together well.
Seriously, who are you guys?
Bowhunter Security, always on point.
Generally, designing props, they're inanimate, but this is more or less a character, this transforming device.
Super Cycle, take us down.
Quietly. They decided they wanted something a little sleeker and a little more updated. So working from this thumbnail design, I created this newer design here, which more or less carries a lot of the aesthetic from the original design.
Where did the inspiration for the redesign come from?
Coming into season 3, I knew from the jump that I wanted to take another pass at the Super Cycle. My justification for that was its whole thing is transformation. And we're really fortunate to get Damon on this because I don't think anybody else could have kept it true to the original, true to the Kirby source material, but come up with something that's practical, functional, and incredibly cool looking. Now we have Hak Jun Kang. He's one half of our super talented background design team.
I'm going to show you guys a place called Infinity Island. It gets adopted by a master of martial arts. We asked the director what he needed as far as staging goes, and he came back and he's like, oh, actually we need more space because there's a lot of people that are going to be interacting there. So we expanded it, added the rock garden and a koi pond. This is what we handed out to the storyboard artists so they get a sense of what the space is, and we could go into different angles.
You have ruined my meditation space.
At this point, our black and white background designs are then channeled over to our background paint department. We have to communicate things like time of day, mood.
Episode 4, for example, we talked a lot about it being, in contrast to the first 3 episodes, big, expansive, open skies. We wanted the mood to feel open, and so scenes are set on the PCH, where you've got the ocean to one side, and the mountain to the other side, and just all this sky.
For this one, we wanted to lighten it up in tone, in mood, and in color and lighting. So that was very much a choice that we had to communicate to our background paint department.
Tell me again what we're doing out here. I'm doing my job. You are trying to unwind. I'm fine. I have no need to unwind.
A lot of what we do on this show is very realistic paint style, unlike past episodes, which were really tight and realistic, but we've leveled up to this very realistic, almost like a 3D image, but not. It's still done in 2D, it still matches the characters. The way it usually starts is we'll get the designs from the designers after the designers and Phil have worked it out, and then we start out with understanding the mood of the particular piece. If it's daytime, nighttime, we get reference like concrete and different stains, cracked paint. So we get an overall view of it. So this mood board represents the general mood of what the garage will be. It's not a broken down garage, but there's old pieces in it. So we have some worn out paint that ends up on the cabinets.
BG Paint is really about creating the sense of mood and atmosphere. This is fairly late stage of the pre-production process, right before Ink and Paint gets the art.
Nightwing B01.
Ink and Paint is the process of adding color to all of our characters and props. So what they need to do is lay their black and white characters on top of the finished background paint and then add color in such a way that it makes it believable that that character is existing in the lighting of that particular space. There's a real art and science to making sure that a character actually feels like they're lit in the space painted by the background artist.
I think we looked better in our Bowhunter security uniforms.
No, you do not.
We had this shot of all the guys on the rooftop. Moon was behind them, so we wanted to make something really dramatic looking.
God, it's got to be so fun to light all the different contours of Nightwing's body.
Oh yeah. Gothic's popular amongst the ladies on Young Justice.
She's sort of sculpting with light, carving into the different planes on the character to create dimension and volume and to accent the anatomy and the details on the character.
My favorite part is figuring out the shadows, so we'll have it all flat.
Oh, cool.
And then I just start kind of sculpting with light.
So much emotion and mood comes through in this coloring process that I wasn't even cognizant of. It's like, this is where it comes together and becomes dark or sad or fun.
This is So Crash. We are on a mission in space.
So I want to know, how familiar were you guys with this franchise before? Had you worked on the show? Were you a fan of it?
I was hooked instantly.
Yeah, of course I was a fan. I loved Young Justice. It was my favorite project ever. I was a fan.
Cool.
I'm still a fan.
I'd always been into cartoons, especially DC cartoons. A lot of people, when they started watching DC cartoons, it was like Batman the Animated Series and Superman and stuff like that. Mine was Static Shock. Do you remember at Moore's Delicatessen on Orange Grove, they would have those Young Justice meetups?
I never went to one, but I did hear all about them. Yes.
Well, as time went on, more people would show up. Even some like voice actors came, and I think even Phil came. The final kind of episode I think that aired, it seemed like it was like almost like 100 people stuffed into that main room.
That's amazing. So you went from these fan meetups to being a character designer. How did that happen?
Well, no, I was working at Nickelodeon, and then when my kind of time was up there, I just called Warner Brothers because I had known Phil for a very long time. We just never worked together, and so this kind of seemed that perfect opportunity.
Oh, that's great.
So Phil, we've been talking about everybody's origin stories, all these heroes, but I want to know what your origin story is. How did you get involved in all of this?
I drew incessantly as a kid. So in my late teens and early 20s, I started to work on this comic book, got a grant to self-publish it. So I went down to Comic-Con and sold like 50 to 100 copies or something. Through serendipity, one of the people that bought my comic book was an executive producer at Warner Brothers. So I get this email out of the blue. I love your work. I'd love to bring you down to the studio and talk to you about character design and art direction. So this was like a dream come true. And she gave my comic book to Dennis Cowan, who was getting ready to produce the 3rd season of Static Shock. And they gave me my first gig as a character designer, and that's kind of how I broke into the business.
That is a super inspiring story. That is just amazing.
You can make a new start here in Metropolis. This is the city of tomorrow.
We're incredibly lucky to have a lot of great talented artists and designers on the crew that I think many of them are industry veterans and just at the top of their game.
In terms of what they bring to the table, it's huge.
I am absolutely blown away at how much time, effort, and attention to detail goes into each show. Next, we are going to the recording studio to meet the gifted voice talent of Young Justice Outsiders. I am so excited to meet both the new cast members and the returning veterans we know and love. Hopefully, I can get a few tips to help voice my character.